when one talks about the structure of the EPLF, actually what has been defined in the first Congress and the formation of the departments. Mostly our departments are headed by Politburo members. We have 11 departments. The departments that deal with political matters are 5. We have the national guidance, the public administration, the security, information, and foreign relations. 3 departments deal with military matters. 1 is training, logistics, and intelligence. We have the economy department, the health department, and the social affairs department. It's simple to look at the structure of the organization from this angle, but in the past 7 or 8 years, besides the war we fight, we have been intensifying our activities in terms of nation building, and our civilian activities that deal with development, especially in agriculture, health services, our educational programs have been intensified, and for that matter one would look at present. These departments, the economy department that deals with development in general, is an organization in itself. In terms of other liberation movements, it's in fact functioning as an institution of a government in terms of third world countries. And the structuring of the economy department has been more complicated than in the past 7 or 8 years. We have the health department, which has been dealing with extensive health services, and it has been improved structure-wise to deal with the basic health problems we have in Eritrea, and we can claim that it's one of our biggest institutions active. The social affairs department, which has been cooperating mainly with ERA in doing relief activities, dealing with economic and social problems of both victims of the war and victims of drought and famine. And it's been one of the departments that has been transformed into an institution which was meant at the very beginning to deal with minor problems, but in due course it had to deal with problems of hundreds of thousands of the civilian population, and for that matter its structuring got more and more complicated. This can be a general explanation of how we have our organization structure.
So you don't look at the EPLF as a pure liberation movement. You look at it more as a government. Can you say so?
Yes, it's better to be. It's good to be modest always. In reality, when we compare our situation here in Eritrea with situations elsewhere in Africa and third world countries and societies, we see that we have done a lot of progress in the process of nation building. We have built an infrastructure which can be considered as an infrastructure of a developing country. The functioning departments we have are more or less like ministries elsewhere that engage themselves in different social, economic, cultural and other activities. Knowing all this, one is tempted to say that we have a government inside the liberated areas. And what we have learned from friends who have visited Eritrea is that the EPLF is not a fighting force. It's not only fighting the enemy. It's not that we have men holding arms either in their trenches or moving around as guerrilla and mobile units. This function of the EPLF is its minor duty when it's compared with other activities of the EPLF. So what we are doing now, the process of continuing the war, which has been imposed upon the population, it's part of the task. It's been the major task from 10 years back. Now it's become a minor task, and the minor tasks we had in the past 10 years have now become major tasks. So these two aspects of the struggle have been developing, and the transformation that has been going on within the organization and the population at large has also been shaped in that regard. So we don't see armed people everywhere doing military job and nothing else. That is not the face you see when you come to know the internal functioning of the organization.
Perhaps it isn't good to ask you about how many EPLF members you have, but you have two kinds of fighters, if I have understood it.
Yeah.
Right. You have what we would say in Sweden, desk fighters and trench fighters. Is it correct?
Yes, it can be said that we have office work and field work.
Yes.
Not in the military aspect of the struggle, but in other civilian activities. You have, say, the agriculture department, where you have professionals doing office work, planning, making research work, and all that. and going to the field to see the implementation of projects, see how things are developing, train skilled people in that field. And we have all that, full-time field workers. So it's not only trench and office work, but both, even in civilian activities, you have two kinds of people.
We are going to find a better word in Swedish than fighter for your members, because when we say fighter in Sweden, people always think of soldiers with
Arms.
always. So we had to find a better word for it that covers both fighting soldiers and those that are fighting behind the desks.
We, in our way of defining things, we say members in general.
You call it members.
Yes. When you mention any member of the EPLF, you just say member, which means any member. When you come to talk about fighting units, we don't say fighters, we say combatants. Sometimes we even say patriots, but patriots includes practically everybody. This way we define our members.
I want to go back to those questions a little. Can you say that you're running at least two, at least more wars? I mean, you have the war against the Ethiopians, but can you say that you have war against acknowledgement, sickness, bad traditions, and together with some of us from abroad, the war against ignorance?
Yeah. I think it's part of the objectives of the struggle. This war will end one day. It's not a full-time job for everybody. It's not a full-time job of generations to come.
No.
But because it's been imposed upon us, because we have to fight and liberate ourselves and our land, so that we build a nation, a prosperous nation, where people would be free to work, use their resources, improve their living conditions. This is the major objective of the struggle. We are doing the war as a part-time job to relieve ourselves of the presence of occupation forces that have been an obstacle to the progress that should have been made within our society. Our main job is to build a nation where agriculture should be advanced, where industry, light industry, and factories have to be there to give their services to the population. We have to have the health conditions of our population improved to the better. We have to deal with every development project so that we improve our living conditions. We have to have a good infrastructure, we have to have houses, we have to have many things. We can do this in decades, we know that. We now have to do part of it. To do all this job, we have to educate our people. Ignorance is an obstacle. You can never have engineers, you can never have skilled people, you can never train people in different fields who would be engaged in the transformation of the economy, the living conditions of the population. The first thing we have to do is educate our people. And the problem of education is felt, and everybody is conscious about it, because we have lost a generation in the course of this war. We have never been given the opportunity to educate our children, our population, and as long as we have this task of building a nation, transforming the living conditions of our people towards a better state, we have to do intensive educational work amongst our population, illiteracy campaign, other academic training. We have to have vocational training for our young and skilled. So all this task is, one might not say war against ignorance, war against natural catastrophes, but it's actually a task, and a major task for everyone who has committed himself to nation building.
You cooperate with ERA in different ways, I see.
Yeah.
And ERA is a pure humanitarian organization. Are you afraid of misunderstanding from, for example, us in Europe, when we look at this? Because you know that people are looking in different ways at the EPLF and ERA. And I mean people that don't know much about.
This has been the case in the past. It's been a concern of many to give a help or to cooperate with ERA as a humanitarian organization would mean that they are dealing with a liberation movement, and that would be interpreted as if they have been committed politically. But experience has proved one thing, and I can say people have now realized the fact that EPLF is not a military organization. EPLF is not only dealing with military matters. EPLF, part of its job, its historical task, is to, as I said earlier, to transform this society. Do things so that living conditions of people improve. Health, housing, food, everything. This part of our task is humanitarian. When it comes to natural catastrophes like drought and famine, we are not to see things develop, folding our hands and be indifferent to that. It's our problem, the problem of our population, and we have to be in the front line to deal with these matters. It means that we are dealing with humanitarian work. When it comes to health services, when it comes to development projects, it's our skill, our members, our populations that have to deal with this matter. Can we separate these two, say that we have to have an organization which is purely humanitarian, and have an organization, militarist in its structure and functioning? That can never be done. We have this organization which is more and more dealing with humanitarian job. Even when it comes to politics, we're fighting for peace before anything else. If people are interested in peace and they would call themselves humanitarian, would partly have to commit themselves in our fight for peace, and many people have been doing it. So one has to have to realize that it's no good to try to separate two things. We have been accommodating other organizations to deal with humanitarian activities, and at times even dismantle some of our departments so that they fit in the structure demanded by humanitarian organizations. That has harmed even humanitarian activities in many aspects. You have an organization that wants to deal with transport for the sake of development projects, would wish to have its own garage, its own skilled people, its own way of doing things. That would not harm the EPLF directly. Those people who have to come and run a certain garage have to come from within the EPLF, all from Eritreans who are working inside or abroad. They're more or less committed to the EPLF. They are EPLF members. Can we say that we are hiring people who have no political commitment in this development project sites? Can we dispense with resources of the EPLF in running this development project? Can ERA have its own people, its own skilled men, professionals, its own machinery, its own structure to run things without cooperating with the EPLF? It's becoming more and more clear to many, but that does not mean that when people prefer that they deal on purely humanitarian matters and they don't want to directly deal with the EPLF, then they deal with the Eritrean Relief Association.
When I talk about Eritrea at home in Sweden for adults, and I talk about all progress and of course even the war, they always ask, where have they got, from where have they got the weapons? Well, they take it from Ethiopians. They don't believe me and I talk about it. Okay, that's okay, you take it from Ethiopians. But where do they get money to food, to fuel, to clothes, and so on and so on? And then it begins to be difficult for us to answer. I say, well, Eritreans abroad pay some amount and so on, but I have very little concrete, very little to point at. Can you help?
Yes, the problem is mostly raised sometimes out of ignorance. People don't know, and sometimes you find people trying to link resources coming for development being used by the army here. Our fighting institution is limited. When you come to evaluate the life of our combatants, these combatants are living at subsistence levels, and most of the times below subsistence levels. When it comes to shoes, we have our own factory, and every shoes, living skill, labor and all that aside, only costs about 5 to 6 cents. It's as cheap as anything, but you find it in the market expensive because people have their machinery, their skill to buy and sell. We don't have that problem. When it comes to clothing, we're using our limited resources to buy second-hand clothes from different markets, which is not costly. We are buying a shirt and trousers with about $2.50 or $3 per pair. That is not costly. Our combatants are living on, as I said, subsistence level standards with 800 to 900 grams of dura, or it goes down sometimes to 700 grams, which is less than 1 kilo or than 3/4 of a kilo. We don't have the luxury of having meat, other nutritious food. We're using oil, which is not available always. We're cultivating land to supply our fighting units with vegetables, and we're not buying that. We are not using sugar. When it comes to tea, everybody is not drinking tea in the front line. I think it's very wise to visualize things from their real nature from the very beginning. We don't have luxurious military institution where you have boots that would cost $20 to $30, very elegant uniforms that would cost you more than $50. We don't have that. The amount of money allocated for a combatant monthly, of course we don't have that, but shoes, clothing, food and everything would cost not more than $12. We are living at that level. To do that, we have to organize our services in the military field in a very refined way, and the human factor is to be taken into account, because the knowledge and understanding of the combatant who has to live at this standard of subsistence level is conscious. He knows what he's doing. Of course, he has lost his rights as a human being to live peacefully in a good way. That has been sacrificed. He has to live for years in trenches, and he is conscious about that. When there is no shoes, he can go barefoot. When there is no clothing, he will tolerate that. This human factor has also been the resolution, the basic resolution of the economic problems we have. To maintain our army, to keep this war going on, we don't need much money, and that can be found by simple fundraising activities from amongst our members outside. When it comes to armaments and ammunition, as you stated earlier, we are not buying anything from outside. Even if we get the money, because these things are expensive and our demand is high, it would be unwise to use money buy weapons. It's easier for us to capture a tank than to buy a tank which would cost not less than $750,000. It's easy to capture a field gun or howitzer than to buy it with hundreds of thousands of dollars. So our army is not an army that would demand a lot of money to be maintained. One has to really understand the functioning of this army, how it's functioning, what are people eating. I don't think anyone from Sweden who is not grasping this reality would come and live with our combatants 1 week, because he will die of hunger. He will not find nutritious food that he finds in Sweden. Maybe it's natural in Sweden that temperature goes many degrees below zero. We don't have that here. But any Swede who would come here and live in our trench will never tolerate cold at night, because he will never have good clothing, he will never have heating systems in the trench. One has to come and realize this fact. When it comes to fighting and capturing arms from the enemy, it's very a last solution to the problem. So it's difficult to see it from one angle and say, well, a military solution is there, because we are not even fighting the regime with arms and only that. Atmosphere of mutual confidence, we would go and discuss political issues, our program and their program, our policies towards basic political issues, be it issues related with internal affairs or external affairs. We see where we differ and where we agree. Try to discuss disagreements on certain points in a democratic way. Be persuasive in convincing people, and be open-minded to accept their views. This long process of consolidating mutual confidence and resolving differences by dialogue and persuasion created an atmosphere of unity. When we reached that stage, it was actually spontaneous. Everybody said, what is the use of continuing like this? We don't have political differences. We have already washed bias, hatred, and everything. We have been indulged in joint activities. We have been fighting the enemy jointly. We have been being active in many social, cultural, and political activities. People finally reach a stage where they don't see the difference, and they go back to their past experience and repent on their wrong attitude and wrong understanding of things, because what was told by ELF leadership and the provocative nature of ELF leadership, which has been trying to flare up things again and again so that people don't come into dialogue, don't come into contact and work together. This has been the case when they pulled out their units that were fighting alongside our units in the frontline positions, because they were feeling that the contacts among combatants, the dialogue that formally or informally takes place amongst members of both organizations, finally leads to people coming to common understanding of things, to resolving their differences, and feeling that what is being done, war, fighting, propaganda, is not true. So what we did with ELFCC, and they have been active and cooperative in this respect, where now we see, and everybody would feel that way, it could have been done earlier. This sort of relationship could have been developed in the late 70s, 76, 77, 78. The obstacle has been the attitude of the ELF, especially the attitude of many nationalist elements who felt that they would fight the EPLF and fight the divisive policies of ELF leadership from inside, transform the ELF into an organization equal to the EPLF, and then come to some sort of agreement. they misjudged because the dominant backward group in the ELF finally was the cause of liquidation and disintegration of the ELF. And there are, of course, personal problems of many. As I said, it's accepted that people have ambitions in life, have attitudes dominated by egoistic tendencies. That is always there. One has to be cautious in dealing with these matters, but it's been overdone by many. The apprehension that they come to the EPLF and be simple members is not accepted by many. So one does not frankly come and tell you, I have been there, a brigade commander, I have been a prominent cadre there, I have to have that sort of post here. That is not done, frankly. And this sort of people would create a certain, I don't know, say, fabricate things, talk on differences, political issues and others, try to mobilize along those lines, sometimes misinform people, and maintain a group that would accept them as prominent leaders or men who can have their views accepted and used in, say, I'm talking in terms of some cadres who have problems. They don't have the skill. They have been active within the ELF and doing limited work. Now when the ELF is disintegrated, they feel that they have no place in any society. They have to live on politics, they have to live on differences, create them when there is need, disinform people. And I have groups who can raise funds monthly, and these funds raised by simple people who do not know and understand their nature, collect money, this money goes into private pockets, and people make a living out of this. So it's many-sided problem, complicated. The upbringing within the ELF, I think, is part of it, and those who are realizing it, many of them, like our friends from the ELF CC, we can say that genuine combatants who were nationalists in their attitude, leave aside leadership, members and cadres. Those are the genuine ones who were committed to go back to Eritrea and fight. Those who have remained in the Sudan or crossed borders elsewhere are to be considered as people not fully committed to the cause. It's not a commitment to the ELF or the EPLF. And the leadership has done its role to perpetuate this idea of mending differences with the EPLF and reaching a stage where there could be full cooperation in many respects.
As I understand, the program of the EPLF and the ELFCC is very close to each other now. But it's not at all talking about that the ELFCC will disappear. It will remain.
No. The Congress will resolve this problem. Our agreement has been that they democratically participate in the Congress, and finally we no more have two organizations, we have one organization.
At the coming second Congress?
Yes, second Congress. That will be the platform where we resolve this technical problem. Actually, it's a technical problem. It's not a political problem. The political program itself, the first Congress of the EPLF had ratified a political program and the constitution. We now have a new draft program and draft constitution which is to be submitted to the Congress and ratified by the Congress. When you see these two programs, there is a lot of difference in essence in both programs and the constitution even. When one talks about programs, we are not rigid in our attitude, and we cannot say that we have one program and that never changes. In due course, people would discover that their past programs and policies were not correct fully, and they have to be amended. They have to introduce new policies that would fit or be correct to follow after this long experience. It's very unrealistic amongst Eritreans to talk on political differences and political problems on basic issues. And the minimum national program is to be the platform of uniting all groups, and that's the way one can organize or create a broad national front in Eritrea. Now, that has been resolved between the EPLF and the ELF-CC. I can't say, or one would not say that we have reached the final stage, because the Congress is the only platform that will have the powers to decide on this or that. But basically, the ELF-CC has agreed that the technical problem of dissolving the present relations of two organizations can only be done legally and democratically within a Congress. They will have their members participating, delegates in the Congress. EPLF delegates will be there. So finally we will have one program, one constitution, and one organization.
When will you have this second Congress?
In a matter of months.
Yes.
Or weeks, I don't know.
Yes. And the last question.
Yeah.
When Eritrea is liberated, what do you think will happen with the EPLF? What will remain, or will it remain anything?
It's
No, I'm not talking about the first year. I'm talking about the second.
well, it's clear in our program. In general terms, the attitude is to create popular democratic institutions. We would have administrative regions or geographical areas within a certain administrative limit. We will have village committees, or a village would elect its committee. We will have regional councils. This would be the base for the democratic institutions. We can have an assembly, a parliament, a council, or anything, which would be an elected body. You can say it would be the legislative, finally, to elect the executive, the government, where you will have ministries and other institutions of executive nature. We would have the judiciary, these basic institutions elected from amongst the population. We can have the same structure in different regions, where people will have their more or less autonomous administration within the regions. Even institutions within these regions will be based on the principle that we have the full and democratic participation of the population, the civilian population. This will be the political or the structure of the government or institutions of the population after independence. How it will be done, of course, there are details and complications, but the EPLF would first of all do this job, install institutions based on popular participation.
Can I say that the infrastructure for this is already in
created.
society.
Yeah.
You can change it, but it is.
It's already established because one would not do that job after liberation. That is not what we have in our political program. We have to educate, train people to exercise their rights, exercise their faculties to create these institutions. We can say now we have acquired an experience and people can easily establish these institutions once we have resolved this problem of war. And I don't see it would be difficult for people to establish these institutions in a matter of years. The refining of these institutions, elaboration on their functions, their interrelations might take some time because now we can't say we have this experience. And I think that itself will not be a major problem because many people will be relieved of this war and will full-time work in perpetuating this idea and elaborating it more. So what we have now in many aspects, the running of the economy, health services, education programs, political institutions of the civilian population are part of what would be done after liberation.
And the very last impossible question. Can you win a pure military victory? Or do you need to have support from Europe, Western world?
It's difficult to speak in terms of pure military victory. Not only from an attitude of an outsider, from the internal dynamics of the struggle. We can see that at a certain stage the political development inside Eritrea, political development in Ethiopia will play an effective role in changing the attitude, the mentality of Ethiopians towards Eritrea. The transformation that is happening in Ethiopia itself will contribute towards a solution to the problem. What we are doing here internally, not the military aspect but the political work we are doing, will finally create a situation where occupationist forces will never have any situation to accommodate them within the political situation in Eritrea. Externally, of course, the pressures and the activities of different groups, governments, political parties, NGOs, involving themselves in finding a political solution or a peaceful solution to the problem will also contribute to the general political transformation in Eritrea, in Ethiopia. Finally, all this plus the weakening of the regime and the strength that would grow to a degree where a situation of deterrence created will make military solutions hopeless from the other side. All this will create a political and military situation that would bring about a last solution to the problem. So it's difficult to see it from one angle and say, well, a military solution is there, because we are not even fighting the regime with arms and only that.